Hello, another old school movie review. This time we're going to look at Ladies and Gentlemen, The Fabulous Stains. My first exposure for this movie came out back in mid mid 80s, possibly. It's definitely been 30 years ago. I saw this at a friend's house. He had taped it off a cable, and he was like, "Yeah, the bass player from the Clash and the guitar player from the Sex Pistols are in this movie. Do you want to watch it?" So we watched it, and at the time, I remember thinking that I remember liking it and thinking it was good and everything. But I literally haven't seen it in 20 years. I don't think it was ever released on VHS or anything like that. And when I watched it recently, I was actually a little bit apprehensive because I was afraid it was going to be one of these things where, you like it when you're young or whatever, and you go back to it several years later, you realize all the flaws and things like that. But I just saw it again, and it actually holds up really, really well. It's actually a really good movie. Basically, it stars Diane Lane, and it was directed by Lou Adler. Lou Adler was I guess he was like a music mogul from like the 60s and 70s. He was famous at those times for producing records by anybody from like Cheech and Chong and uh, people like Carole King and people from that whole generation. And I didn't know this literally until like today. He actually directed the first Cheech and Chong movie, Up in Smoke. Um, so he was the director of this movie. It was written by a woman named Nancy Dowd. I knew this fairly recently. She actually has her name taken off. It says written by Bob Morton, but that was a pseudonym she used. And I guess the way I heard the story was she had her name taken off of it because when they were filming the movie, she felt that she was being kind of harassed by like crew members and things like that. So, and that's actually kind of ironic because the story of the movie does have something to do with like female empowerment and stuff like that. And so to be a professional woman and go on a job site and to be like sexually harassed or disrespected or whatever is actually kind of ironic, kind of interesting. But things that I think she's famous for, I know she wrote the screenplay for like Slapshot, which is a Paul Newman hockey movie from the 70s, and I guess she won like an award, or she was either won an award or was nominated for a movie called Coming Home, which was like a Vietnam movie from the 70s. Anyway, the plot of this movie is Diane Lane and her sister and her cousin kind of formed this punk rock band or whatever, and they end up opening for this up and coming punk rock band. It basically kind of talks about how they go from kind of obscurity to getting a certain type of notoriety and then kind of having things kind of fall apart for them. And it's actually really, 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 really interesting. What's interesting is it's very much about the whole kind of late 70s, early 80s punk rock new wave scene. And it pretty much gets everything pretty much right. I can remember like back in the day, you would always see these really hokey, stupid like sitcoms that try to have like a new wave person with a pink mohawk and it would totally be stupid or else the show would be stupid and the depiction of these characters would be stupid. And same thing for something that was supposedly more serious. If you're my age, you've probably seen either the punk rock episode of Quincy or the punk rock episode of like Chips, uh, where it was dealt with this kind of really strange, overwrought. Oh my God, what are these people going to do? And it's obvious that the writers and the producers have no idea whatsoever what they're talking about. But anyway, this movie comes from a point of view that's really informed at things. Basically, like I said, Diane Lane and her sister and her cousin end up opening for a band called the Looters, and the Looters are made up of Steve Jones and Paul Cook from the Sex Pistols, and Paul Simonon from the Clash, and then the main actor, his name is Ray Winstone, and basically they're like an up and coming band of the era who start off opening for a band called the Metal Corpses, which is fronted by this kind of they're supposed to be a burned out type of like hard rock 70s type guys who are all burnt out and past their prime. And the lead singer of that band is actually played by Fee Waybill, who was the lead singer of the Tubes, if you remember the 80s. Anyway, that band is going out. The Looters are up and coming, and then the Stains are opening for them. And like I said, it shows how it shows a little interesting thing, because you always see these things about these movies about pop stars or whoever, and it's always like the rise and fall, and they always show them getting famous, and they're doing interviews, and they've got penthouses, and they're drinking champagne and stuff like that. This doesn't show that. This shows the exact opposite of that side. This shows the scene of getting in a tour bus, egos, no money, getting ripped off, all that sort of thing. So it's a really, really interesting movie, and it really, really, really holds up well. Like I said, another thing it shows of the whole idea of the kind of the package rebellion that you see so often in, like, pop music. And you even see it today, whether it's rap, whether it's metal, whether it's whatever. The whole idea of, you think you're a rebel, but how much money are you paying on all of this merchandise that you're buying? What's rebellious about that? The other thing is, like I said, there's the whole sort of, I don't want to say girl power thing, but there is a whole thing of you could be a young woman and stick up for yourself and do your own thing. At the same time, you go out there, there's certain consequences you got to take. There are people who will exploit you if you let them. There are people who will say they're sticking up for you, but they've got their own ulterior motives. So it's really great. It's a really, really, really smart movie. My favorite line from a movie is with the tour manager, the guy who's driving a bus. He's talking to Diane Lane, and they're saying, well, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. And he says to them, hey, yeah, sure. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die, Greatest line ever. So obviously, I would encourage anybody to go out and rent this movie or whatever. Obviously, anybody who's interested in that type of music, but even if you don't like that style of music, still go watch it, because the acting is good, even though most of the people aren't professional actors. Oh, Laura Dern is in this movie. What's hilarious about this is, allegedly, she's like, all the girls are supposed to be teenagers. Allegedly, she's supposed to be like 13 in real life when she filmed this, but she's like taller than everyone in the movie. I don't know how tall she is in real life, but she looks like she's like 5'10" in there. I just think it's hilarious. But anyway, yeah, if you're interested in that era of the music business, definitely watch it. If you are interested in anything about punk rock or alternative rock, if you're interested in just seeing, Diane Lane is still making movies, Ray Winstone's still making movies. There's one thing though that kind of stuck out, and I remember when I saw it as a kid, thinking, okay, the movie goes on, and it ends on a very specific note, and there's a freeze frame, and then there's kind of an epilogue, where at the time I felt that kind of seems kind of tacked on, and it almost seems like a Hollywood type ending or whatever, and it just didn't seem to fit with the rest of the story. And I've since found out that actually was a tacked on ending. Like, they had shot the movie, and it took a long time to get it, edited, and between that time, they went back 2 years later and filmed the epilogue that leads into, like, the closing credits. And that was because, without giving anything away, things were happening in the early 80s with MTV and blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, it's pretty obvious when you watch the movie how that part fits, or actually didn't fit. But anyway, go watch this movie. It's lots of fun. I can watch it over and over and over. And if you've got any memories about that era of music, if you've got any other rock and roll movies you want to talk about or recommend, please leave a comment. Give it a rating. Tell me you think I'm completely wrong. Tell me you understand where I'm coming from. And that's it. Thanks a lot for listening, and you have a great one.